The forest was no longer a forest, it was a battlefield. Thick black smoke, like the blood of some hellish demon, slithered between fallen trees, rising from the ground as if the underworld itself was breathing. The crackling of burning wood echoed through the air, mingling with the shrieking wind like the wounded howl of a dying beast. Amidst the chaos, Lirien Vasa's old SUV sat motionless, its tires sunken deep into the fickle crust of frozen snow, the engine silent, like a final sentence passed. Inside, 10-year-old Kaelith clung tightly to a worn leather collar, the last keepsake of Titan, the German shepherd the family thought they had lost forever in last month's snowstorm. Lirien stepped out of the car, her heavy boots crunching through the icy snow, each step a hammer blow against the suffocating silence. She wasn't the panicking type. A middle school history teacher, she had always believed in control and logic. But logic meant nothing now. She looked up at the sky, an oppressive gray shroud heavy with ash and death, not a single ray of hope piercing through. Smoke curled from the distance, and tongues of fiery orange flickered between the blackened pines like the eyes of demons lying in wait. This wildfire wasn't natural. It had been born from weeks of unnatural drought in the heart of winter, fed by vicious winds, and now it lived, a relentless monster devouring everything in its path. She turned and looked at Kaelith through the fogged-up window. The child sat curled in the back seat, her face pale as wax, her eyes hollow since the moment the engine coughed its last and died an hour ago. Not a word had passed her lips, only her hands clung tighter to Titan's collar, as if it was the last thread tying her to this world. Titan had been her only anchor since her father, the man she once called the mountain that never falls, was taken from them in a horrific truck accident 2 years ago. And now Titan too was gone, leaving the mother and daughter trapped in this nightmare. Lirien took a deep breath, the cold turning it into white mist that vanished instantly in the biting air. But it wasn't the cold that gripped her chest, it was the thickening smoke, the stench of death growing stronger by the second. The phone in her hand was now just a dead lump of plastic. No signal, no service, no rescue. The distant hum of helicopters she kept praying for was nothing but illusion. They were alone, stranded in the heart of the woods, caught between fire and ice with no way out. Suddenly, a deafening explosion shattered the silence. Not far away, a massive pine tree collapsed, sending out a burst of sparks like fireworks from hell, illuminating Lirien's pale face. She flinched and spun around, her heart pounding like it would rip through her chest. Through the dense smoke she caught a glimpse, a silhouette. No, not one. Dozens. Silent shapes moving between the charred trunks. A low, guttural growl rolled through the air, closer than she'd thought, raising every hair on her body. "Wolves," she whispered, hand trembling as it reached for the car door. But then, from the swirling smoke and ash, something impossible happened. A German shepherd burst forth, its fur dusted in soot, its eyes blazing like living fire. And it wasn't a stranger. Titan. He was alive. And he was charging straight toward them. Lirien froze, eyes wide in disbelief as Titan burst through the thick curtain of smoke, charging straight toward the SUV. His once proud golden coat was now streaked with ash and black mud, ears sharp and alert like twin blades cutting through the air, and his eyes, those blazing eyes, burning like a living flame among the ashes, locked onto her. Titan barked, sharp and commanding, not a cry for help, but an order. Before Lirien could even react, Kaelith screamed, a sound that cracked open, torn between joy and panic, and flung the car door open. Her small legs slipped on the icy surface, but nothing could stop her as she ran toward Titan, the worn leather collar slipping from her hand and falling into the snow like a forgotten memory. "Titan!" Kaelith cried out, her voice shattering like glass. The dog responded with a deep, throaty whimper and barreled toward her, knocking both of them into the snow in a tangle of fur, tears, and laughter, the first laughter Lirien had heard from her daughter since that fateful day 2 years ago. Kaelith clung to Titan, burying her face in his dirty fur, sobbing as if finally releasing all the pain she'd kept bottled up for so long. Titan wagged his tail furiously, licking her face, but then he stopped, head lifting, nose sniffing the air. Lirien noticed the change in his eyes. It wasn't joy but urgency. From the smoke behind him, 4 small shapes stumbled forward. For puppies, tiny versions of Titan, wobbled through the thick snow on trembling legs, wide eyes full of confusion. Their scruffy fur was smeared with ash and dirt, as if they had crawled out of another world. One fell and let out a weak squeal, and Titan immediately turned back, nudging it up with his nose, urging it to keep moving. Lirien felt her heart clench. Titan hadn't just survived. He had brought a family. But why now? Why here on the razor's edge between life and death? A distant boom snapped Lirien back to reality. Another pine tree crashed down, spewing sparks like a red meteor shower, and the thick smoke rolled closer, carrying the suffocating heat of a living furnace. Titan barked again, this time not to greet but to command. He turned and sprinted a few steps into the forest, then looked back at Lirien and Kaelith, his eyes saying clearly, "Follow me." No. Lirien hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to stay near the car, to wait for rescue, but the helicopters she kept hoping for were nothing more than echoes of wind in her head. No one was coming. No one knew they were here. And the fire, that monstrous living thing, was growling closer, every breath a crackle of burning wood and scorched earth. Kaelith looked up from Titan's embrace, her face smudged with ash but her eyes shining with a hope Lirien hadn't seen since the day her father died. "Mom, we have to go," she said, voice small but steady as stone. "He knows the way." Lirien met her daughter's gaze, then looked at Titan, the dog who once braved a thunderstorm to bring Kaelith back from the fields behind their house, the dog who had lain by her bed every night after the funeral. If there was anyone to trust in this nightmare, it was him. Without another word, Lirien darted back to the car, yanked the emergency backpack from the trunk, half-frozen bottles of water, a flashlight with fading batteries, some dry protein bars, and a thin blanket smelling faintly of engine oil. She wrapped the smallest pup in her torn scarf, holding it close to her chest, feeling its faint warmth through the fabric. Kaelith picked up another, cradling it as if clutching her very soul. Titan took the lead, his tail raised like a battle flag, diving into the forest. The mother, daughter, and their ragtag pack stumbled after him, the crunch of breaking snow underfoot chasing the roar of fire behind them. The forest swallowed them instantly. The world of roads and engines faded into dense undergrowth, jagged rocks hidden beneath snow, and air heavy with smoke. Titan didn't follow a path. He made one, weaving through ancient pines, leaping over frozen gullies, his ears rotating like radar scanning for danger. Lirien stumbled, grabbing onto a slick tree trunk, bark ripping open her palm, leaving a smear of crimson on the white snow. She gritted her teeth, too afraid to cry out, clutching the shivering puppy tighter. Beside her, Kaelith walked silently, cheeks flushed red from the cold, her eyes never leaving Titan, as if he were the only lighthouse in this storm. They crossed a narrow ravine where the snow reached their knees. The puppies whimpered and stumbled, falling again and again, but Titan circled back each time, nudging them forward with relentless patience. Eventually they reached a frozen stream, a silver ribbon threading through the forest, fragile as a broken promise. Lirien stepped onto it cautiously. A faint crack echoed beneath her boots like death whispering in her ear. She moved slowly, heart pounding, but halfway across her foot slipped violently. She dropped to one knee, ice shattering under her weight, freezing water seeping into her pants and slicing into her skin like 1,000 knives. The puppy in her arms whimpered in terror. Titan turned at once, racing to her side, teeth clamping down on her sleeve, pulling with the strength of a wild beast refusing to surrender. "Thank you," Lirien whispered, breath trembling as she rose with his help. But the moment didn't last. The wind shifted, carrying with it a new, terrible sound, the roar of fire like a colossal beast, trees exploding like fireworks, and a brilliant orange glow piercing through the haze. The smoke now wasn't just a warning, it was death's breath, thick, choking, pressing into Lirien's lungs with every gasp. Titan froze, ears swiveling, nose sniffing wildly. Then he barked, a single sharp command, and tore forward again, not away from the fire but cutting across the slope, deeper into the nightmare woods. "Run, Kaelith. Follow him." Lirien screamed, voice raw from the smoke. Kaelith didn't hesitate. She dashed after Titan, the puppy in her arms crying out. Lirien ran after them, lungs burning, not knowing where Titan was leading, but knowing without question that if they didn't follow they would die. The fire was no longer a distant threat, it was real. A living wall of flames and smoke, roaring like a ravenous dragon just a few hundred meters away. The crackling of burning wood exploded like fireworks, embers shooting into the air, glowing red like demonic eyes in the dark forest. Lirien ran behind Titan, her legs heavy as lead, each step a battle against the thick snow and the aching pain spreading through her body. Smoke clawed at her throat, every breath a searing burn in her lungs. In her arms, the smallest puppy trembled, its faint warmth the only reminder that they were still alive. Kaelith ran ahead, her small arms clutching her puppy, her bare legs beneath thin boots turning purple from the cold. Titan led the way, his sturdy body like a fearless warrior charging through thorny bushes, ears swiveling constantly, searching for a path. Behind them came a terrifying crack. A giant pine tree, flames licking from root to tip, crashed down right where they had just passed. Lirien screamed, thrown forward by the blast of heat and ash, collapsing into the snow. The smoke was so thick she couldn't see anything beyond the blurry shadows of Kaelith and Titan ahead. "Kaelith!" she shouted, her voice lost in the roar of the flames. On the other side of the fire, Kaelith turned back, her face streaked with ash and tears. "Mom!" she cried, her voice breaking with despair. Titan barked furiously, darting back and forth near the fallen tree, searching for a way through. But the fire had built an impenetrable wall, towering into the sky, radiating heat that seemed ready to devour everything. Lirien coughed violently, hands pressed to the snow, struggling to stand, her legs trembling beneath her. The puppies whimpered pitifully, huddling around Kaelith, shivering from both cold and fear. Lirien felt her heart shatter, she couldn't get through. She couldn't reach her daughter. But Titan didn't give up. With a sharp bark, he turned and vanished into the smoke, disappearing like a ghost. Kaelith fell to her knees in the snow, clutching her puppy, sobbing. "Don't leave me," she whispered. But just seconds later, Titan burst back through the forest from a different direction, muzzle blackened with soot, eyes blazing with an undying fire. He ran straight to Kaelith, nudging her to her feet, then lay down beside her, pressing his warm body against hers like a living shield. Lirien, just meters away, crawled through snow and thorns, her hands bloodied from clawing at rock and bark, desperate to reach her daughter. Through the choking haze she heard Kaelith's voice, "Mom!" Gritting her teeth, Lirien lunged toward the sound, ignoring the burning heat against her torn clothes. Finally she collapsed beside Kaelith, pulling her daughter into her arms, tears mixing with ash on her cheeks. Titan lay there, breathing heavily, but his eyes still burned bright, still alert. "I thought I lost you," Kaelith whispered, her voice trembling. "I thought I lost you too," Lirien replied, stroking her daughter's hair, holding tightly to the warmth of life in the midst of a nightmare. But the danger wasn't over. Titan jumped to his feet, barked once, and charged up a steep, rocky slope, looking back as if to say, "Keep moving." Lirien strapped the puppy to her chest with a torn scarf, helped Kaelith up, and they followed Titan, every step a struggle against exhaustion. The puppies staggered behind them, their faint cries blending with the howling wind. They climbed slippery rocks, crossed a narrow gorge where the wind shrieked like the laughter of death. Lirien fell twice, knees torn open, blood staining the snow, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. At last, Titan halted before a small crevice in the stone, a natural cave hidden deep within the gray granite, just large enough to shelter them all. Lirien pushed Kaelith inside first, then passed each puppy through the narrow gap. When she crawled in last, hands trembling from exhaustion, her body collapsed onto the cold stone floor. Titan entered last, quietly curling up by the entrance, his sturdy form a silent barrier between them and the raging fire outside. Inside the cave the air was cold but clean, no more choking smoke. Lirien pulled Kaelith close, holding her and the puppies tightly, listening to Titan's steady breathing beside them. "Thank you," she whispered, running her hand over his filthy fur. Titan simply gave a soft grunt, his eyes closing, ears still alert, standing guard. The night passed in silence, only the distant crackle of dying fire and the wind's mournful howl. As dawn broke, the sky lightened, the smoke began to thin, revealing patches of pale blue. Then Lirien heard it, the hum of an engine. A rescue helicopter echoed through the mountains. She staggered to her feet, pulling a signal flashlight from her backpack, and shone it through the crack in the rocks. Minutes later, a bright orange helicopter landed in a clearing nearby. The rescue team rushed toward them with blankets, water, and urgent questions, but Kaelith said only one thing: "We followed him. He saved us." She pointed to Titan, now standing firm beside her, the puppies curled around his legs. The rescue team leader looked at Titan, then at the 4 ash-covered puppies, shaking his head in amazement. "This dog deserves a medal," he murmured. Titan jumped into the helicopter without hesitation, lying down beside Kaelith, his head resting gently on her lap. The puppies climbed aboard, one mischievously chewing on Kaelith's bootlace, making her giggle, a sound of pure joy rising from the ashes of memory. Lirien climbed in last, sitting beside Titan, her hand resting on his head. "You made it home," she whispered. Titan didn't bark, didn't move. He just looked at her with eyes full of meaning, as if to say, "I never left." The story of Lirien, Kaelith, and Titan teaches us a powerful truth. In our darkest moments, loyalty and faith can be the light that guides us. Titan wasn't just a dog, he was a symbol of resilience and unconditional love, reminding us that hope often comes not from logic or plans, but from the simplest of things: a friend, a family, or a gaze that never gives up. Treasure the Titans in your life. They may be the ones who lead you through the storm you never saw coming. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful, emotional tales. Every story is a journey, and we'd love to take the next one with you.